I once heard someone say, if you're not grinding, you're dying. And it caught my attention because that's what so many young men and women are being told today. Hustle harder, sleep less, never stop. And if you pause for even a moment, someone else will take your place. Now, when I first started out, I believed something similar. I thought, if I can just work more hours, make more calls, take fewer breaks, then success will come faster. And for a while, it worked. The checks got bigger, the applause got louder. But then something strange happened. The joy didn't keep up with the success. The peace didn't grow with the progress. I remember sitting in a hotel room after one of my biggest seminars. Thousands of people, standing ovation, a great night. But when I got back to that room, I sat quietly by the window and realized something was missing. It wasn't exhaustion I felt. It was emptiness. I had been chasing results, but I had left my spirit behind somewhere on the road. And that's when I started to ask myself the question I want to ask you today. Is hustle culture killing your happiness? You see, there's a difference between working hard and being addicted to working. Hard work builds you. Addiction to work consumes you. Hard work gives you pride. Addiction steals your peace. Now, don't misunderstand me. I believe in hustle. I believe in showing up early and staying late when it's required. But I also believe there's something deeply wrong when we start to measure our worth by our exhaustion. When "I'm so busy" becomes a badge of honor, we lose sight of what we're busy for. A young man once came up to me after a seminar and said, "Jim, I work 14 hours a day. I haven't taken a weekend off in 2 years, but I still feel stuck. What should I do?" I smiled and said, "Take a walk." He looked confused. "A walk?" I said, "Yes. Leave your phone at home. Go outside. Walk until you can hear yourself think again." You see, the problem isn't that we're not achieving enough. It's that we've forgotten why we started achieving in the first place. We're chasing more because everyone else is chasing more. But the finish line keeps moving because nobody knows where it actually is. Here's something I learned over the years. You can't win a race that has no end. And that's what hustle culture has become. An endless race with no rest stops, no quiet moments, no reflection. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, I once said. But let me add something to that now, from a little more experience. Peace is the bridge between accomplishment and fulfillment. Because what good is accomplishment if you don't feel whole inside? Let me tell you a story. There was a farmer who worked day and night on his land. His crops were the best in town. Everyone admired him. But one day his son asked, "Dad, why do you work so hard?" And the farmer replied, "So we can have a better life." The boy thought for a while and said, "Dad, if we already have a life, when will it get better?" That question stayed with the farmer, and it should stay with us too. We've come to believe that more work means more life, but sometimes more work just means less living. I've seen men climb the ladder of success only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. They reached the top, looked around, and said, "This isn't what I wanted," because they traded their time for trophies, their relationships for results, their laughter for late nights, and they thought that was success. But success, my friends, is not just the money you make. It's the peace you feel when you close your eyes at night. It's the joy of knowing you worked well without losing yourself in the process. We've been told that rest is laziness, but rest is wisdom. Even God rested on the seventh day, and he wasn't tired. He paused to appreciate what he created. Maybe we need to do the same. I'm not asking you to quit your hustle. I'm asking you to redefine it. Work hard, yes, but don't worship work. Because once you do, happiness becomes a sacrifice on the altar of ambition. And here's a quiet truth I've learned. You don't have to run faster to feel fulfilled. Sometimes you just have to slow down long enough to feel grateful. So tonight, Before you scroll through another motivational quote or listen to another rise and grind speech, take a breath. Ask yourself, am I chasing my dreams or running from my peace? Because maybe, just maybe, it's not your lack of success that's making you unhappy. It's your lack of stillness. I remember once meeting a man in New York. He was in his mid-30s, polished suit, sharp words, and a nervous smile. He told me, "Jim, I've made it. I've got the job, the penthouse, the car, the applause. But when I wake up in the morning, I feel nothing." And I said to him, "That's the quiet pain behind ambition." See, ambition is a beautiful thing when it's guided by purpose. But when ambition runs without meaning, it becomes a silent thief. It doesn't shout. It doesn't warn you. It just slowly steals your peace, one unchecked goal at a time. We live in a time where we've replaced meaning with momentum. We think if we're moving fast, we must be doing well. But motion without direction is chaos in disguise. You can be running 100 miles an hour right into a wall. Now, I'm not here to tell you to stop striving. Ambition built this country. It created innovation, progress, and opportunity. But I am here to remind you that ambition without reflection creates burnout, not breakthrough. Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't to keep going. It's to stop long enough to ask why. There's an old story I love. A fisherman sits by the shore enjoying the sun. A businessman walks up and says, "Why are you sitting here? You could catch more fish, buy a bigger boat, hire a crew, and make more money." The fisherman smiles and asks, "Then what?" The businessman replies, "Then you can relax and enjoy your day." The fisherman laughs softly. "Isn't that what I'm doing already?" That story isn't about laziness, it's about awareness. You see, ambition tells us to climb higher. Wisdom tells us to make sure the mountain is the right one. I've learned that Americans, especially today, are under immense pressure to always be achieving. We scroll through social media and see people celebrating wins every hour, promotions, vacations, perfect routines, six-figure months. And somewhere deep inside, a little voice whispers, "You're falling behind." But let me tell you something, you're not behind. You're human. And life isn't a race, it's a rhythm. You can't live well if you're constantly sprinting through your own story. I once said, happiness is not something you postpone for the future, it is something you design for the present. Now, that's not just a quote, it's a principle. Because if your happiness is always one promotion away, one milestone away, one someday away, you'll never hold it long enough to feel it. A few years back, I met a young entrepreneur who was working 18 hours a day building his dream company. He said, "Jim, I'm doing this for my family." I asked, "How much time do you spend with them?" He paused. "Not much. But one day, when this is all set up, I'll make it up to them." I said, "Don't let that one day turn into never." Because success that costs you the people you love isn't success. It's just a better-looking form of loneliness. And that's what hustle culture never tells you. The invoice comes later. It looks glamorous on the surface, the grind, the flights, the nonstop energy. But when the lights go out and the phone stops ringing, you're left asking a quiet question. Who am I without the work? That question scared me once, because for years my identity was wrapped around what I produced, not who I was becoming. And the truth is, you can't outrun that feeling with another achievement. So let's slow this down a little. Let's think about what real ambition looks like. Real ambition is wanting to grow without losing your soul along the way. It's striving for more, but not at the cost of peace, relationships, or health. It's creating, not escaping. It's earning, not proving. There's a phrase I used to say often, don't just make a living, make a life. Because life is meant to be experienced, not merely survived. Ask yourself this tonight. When was the last time you sat in silence without checking your phone? When was the last time you celebrated a small win without immediately chasing the next? When was the last time you looked at the sunset and thought, this moment is enough? We've been trained to believe that peace is something we can buy after we've achieved enough. But peace doesn't come from success. It creates success. Because when your mind is quiet, your decisions are clearer. When your heart is calm, your direction becomes sure. I want you to imagine this. You're driving on a foggy road at night. You can't see the whole highway, just a few feet ahead. But if you keep moving slowly, carefully, the road reveals itself as you go. That's how life works. You don't need to rush to the finish line. Just take the next right step with awareness. The danger of hustle culture is that it teaches you to measure life in miles instead of meaning. It celebrates speed but ignores direction. It glorifies exhaustion but forgets joy. So I'll ask you, when you wake up tomorrow, don't just think about how much you'll do, think about why you're doing it. Because that little shift from reaction to intention can save your happiness before it's too late.
You know, it's a funny thing. We spend so much time trying to get there. But when we arrive, we often don't feel the way we thought we would. We tell ourselves, once I reach that point, I'll finally feel complete. But here's what I learned. If you don't feel fulfilled while you're walking the path, you won't feel fulfilled when you reach the end of it either. Hustle culture sells you the dream of freedom, but often it trades it for another kind of cage, a golden one with shiny rewards but no rest inside. You see, when you make your entire identity out of the grind, you start to fear stillness. You forget how to breathe without rushing, how to live without chasing. I remember when I was younger, I met an old farmer out in Idaho. He had a slow, peaceful rhythm about him, the kind of man who looked like he knew what really mattered. He told me, Jim, every season has its work, but it also has its rest. Even the soil knows when to stop. That struck me because the earth itself, the very ground we walk on, understands balance better than most people do. Winter isn't wasted time, it's recovery time. But in our world today, we don't allow ourselves a winter. We want to harvest all year long. There's a quiet tragedy happening in our society. We've confused productivity with purpose. We think busyness equals value. But being busy doesn't mean you're being effective. And being effective doesn't mean you're at peace. I once said, don't let your learning lead to knowledge. Let your learning lead to action. But I'll add something more to that now. Let your action lead to awareness. Because if you're acting without awareness, you might be climbing the wrong ladder entirely. And it's not just individuals. The entire culture feeds this idea that your worth depends on your output. From the moment you wake up, you're told to maximize, optimize, monetize, as if your soul were a business plan. But human beings aren't built like machines. We're meant to grow, not grind. Let me share a small story. A young man once came to a wise mentor and said, "Sir, I'm exhausted. I work from sunrise to midnight, but I feel like I'm not getting anywhere." The mentor smiled and handed him an axe. "Go cut down that tree." The man went out and chopped for hours, but the tree wouldn't fall. Frustrated, he returned. "It's not working." The mentor looked at the axe and said, "When was the last time you sharpened it?" The man blinked. "I didn't have time." The mentor replied, "That's your problem. You were too busy swinging to stay sharp." That's what's happening to so many people today. They're swinging harder every day, trying to prove their worth, but never stopping long enough to sharpen their mind, their values, their direction. And when the exhaustion hits, they mistake it for failure, when really it's just a sign to rest, reflect, and realign. Let's be honest, the American dream has turned into an American sprint. We're all running, but few know where they're going. And the finish line keeps moving, doesn't it? First it's money, then it's status, then it's recognition. And when you finally get there, you realize it never ends. Because the mind that needs validation will never have enough of it. You know, I once told an audience, learn how to be happy with what you have while you pursue all that you want. That's the art of living. Ambition and appreciation can live in the same house. But if you kick appreciation out, ambition becomes a tyrant. It's okay to want more, to dream, to build, to grow. But the key is why. Do you work to express your gifts or to escape your fears? Do you build because you love to create or because you're terrified of being ordinary? Those are tough questions, but they'll tell you the truth faster than any motivational quote ever will. I've met men who've built empires yet can't sleep at night. And I've met simple workers who go home each evening with peace in their hearts. The difference isn't the size of their paycheck, it's the state of their spirit. Hustle culture teaches you that peace is what you earn after the work is done. But real peace is what allows the work to mean something. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead with clarity if your soul is constantly exhausted. And here's the real challenge. Slowing down isn't laziness. It takes tremendous courage to rest in a world addicted to noise. Because the moment you pause, you'll start hearing the thoughts you've been avoiding. You'll face your insecurities, your doubts, your fears of being not enough. But that's where growth really happens. Not in the noise, but in the silence. Sometimes what you need isn't another strategy or a 5 a.m. routine. What you need is stillness. To ask yourself, what am I really chasing and why? Because if the answer doesn't bring peace, it's time to change the question. So if you ever feel like your hard work is draining your joy, remember this: you are allowed to pause. You are allowed to redefine success. You are allowed to choose a life that feels right, not just looks right. Because life isn't a contest, it's a craft. And the more mindful you are with your tools, your time, your energy, your focus, the better your creation will be. Now, as we come to the final stretch of this reflection, let's take a quiet moment to breathe. You've worked hard. You've been chasing, running, planning, building. And maybe, for the first time in a while, you're sitting still long enough to realize all that motion didn't always mean progress. You see, hustle is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. Work was never the enemy. In fact, work gives life purpose. But when we let the hustle become our identity, that's when we lose something much greater than success. We lose peace. There's a quiet danger in believing that slowing down is weakness. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that rest means laziness, that quiet means you've fallen behind. But here's the truth I discovered. Stillness isn't surrender, it's strategy. It's where your best thoughts are born. I remember years ago, I was sitting on a small porch in Idaho with an older gentleman, a farmer, quiet man, strong hands, eyes full of years. I asked him, how do you stay so calm when the weather ruins your crops, when the market drops, when the world seems against you? He smiled and said, son, I can't control the rain, the soil, or the wind, but I can control my patience. Crops don't grow because I shout at them. They grow because I tend to them. That line stayed with me because the same applies to life. You can't rush the season of growth. You can't force timing. All you can do is tend to your work,
your character, your relationships, and trust that in time the harvest will come. And that's the quiet truth hustle culture forgets. It teaches us to sprint in a marathon. It sells urgency as the secret to success. But urgency without wisdom burns out the soul. Jim Rohn once said, "Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills." That's the kind of mindset that endures, one that focuses not on the rush, but on the roots. You see, you don't have to quit hustling. You just have to start hustling for the right reasons. Not to impress others, not to keep up with social media, not to silence your fears, but to build something that matters, something that outlasts applause. I know people who built empires, but lost the peace to enjoy them. And I know people who built small, quiet lives, yet lived them with such grace and richness, you'd think they'd found the secret to heaven itself. So maybe the real question isn't, how far can I go? Maybe it's, how far can I go without losing myself? Because the goal isn't just success, it's significance. And significance requires presence. Presence requires balance. And balance requires the wisdom to pause. I've said for years, success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day. But those disciplines must be grounded in purpose, or else they'll lead you nowhere fast. So take a look at your daily hustle. Ask yourself, am I building a life I love or just escaping the one I fear? Because here's the irony. You can't run your way into happiness. Happiness is built slowly, quietly, intentionally. It's built in how you treat people, how you talk to yourself, how you manage your time when no one's watching. The happiest people I've ever met weren't the busiest. They were the most grateful. They still worked hard. They still dreamed big. But they also laughed more, loved deeply, and forgave quickly. They understood what I hope you'll take from this message: that a full schedule isn't the same as a full life. That busyness can be a form of avoidance. And that true peace, the kind that lasts, is born from self-awareness, not speed. So here's what I'd like you to do, just as a quiet practice. Take one evening this week. Turn off the noise. No phone, no TV, no scroll. Sit down with a piece of paper and ask yourself 3 simple questions. What really matters to me? Who am I becoming through my work? And what would I regret if this hustle cost me everything? Your answers might surprise you. They might even save you. Because life isn't meant to be a race toward exhaustion. It's meant to be a rhythm. Work and rest. Effort and reflection. Motion and meaning. You're not just a worker. You're a creator. You're a thinker. You're a human being, not a human doing. And when you begin to live from that place,
when your hustle serves your happiness, not steals from it, everything changes. You start to make decisions from peace.
So as we close this reflection, remember this one truth. You can have drive and still have peace. You can chase goals without losing gratitude. You can build your dreams without burning your soul. Because in the end, the goal isn't to do it all. The goal is to live well. As Jim Rohn once said, learn how to be happy with what you have while you pursue all that you want. That's not just success. That's wisdom. That's life, lived right. So take a breath, slow down, and remember, you don't have to prove your worth through motion. You already have it. And from that stillness, go build something truly beautiful.